Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the fifth edition of the Limerick Junior Soccer Focus with myself, Adrian Finnin, and joined by my co-commentator, Aidan Ryan, here this evening. Aidan, we've plenty to get through this evening after, I suppose, we had an off week due to my unavailability, unfortunately, last week, but we've plenty to get through, including two Premier games from last weekend, Aidan, that had to be fulfilled. There was two big wins in those games. One, you had Ashton defeating Regional in that refixed game, and also Janesborough defeating Charleville. But to start with the Ashton and Regional game, a bit of a comedic moment, I suppose, in the winner scored by Shane Stack, a bootless Shane Stack, who was carrying around his boot for at least 30 seconds before the ball fell to him and he smashed it into a corner. But a brilliant result for Anacotti and a great goal by him as well.
Very important result for Anacotti. I think they're going to join top now, Adrian, with Fairview up top of the league. As I said previously, there aren't too many times in their history that they've been top of the league, so it's nice to be up there. And the thing now is to make sure they do stay there. As for Shane Stack, what a goal without your boot. But no bother to Shane Stack, because I believe he's a very accomplished Gaelic footballer. So there's plenty of strength in those feet. And look, I had him at Janesborough for a few years. Really good lad, great player, very good in the dressing room, and he is the sort of fella that would actually die with his boots on or off for you. So I'm delighted for him, actually, because he's a player that gives you a level of consistency that a lot of other players don't often give you. So I'm delighted for Shane. Yeah,
we'll move on and discuss Regional in more depth soon, Aidan, because I want to go on to maybe the race for the top six, which it's incredible that it's already coming towards the closing stages of that. So we'll come on to that. But obviously another huge win for your former club and your former co-manager in Shane O'Hanlon at the weekend, a 2-0 win over Charleville. A few people I would have spoken to would have fancied Charleville going into that game. So to keep a clean sheet and get a 2-0 win, William Glass with 2 goals was really good for confidence for Janesborough now.
Yeah, fantastic result for them. Very important result. Their first victory on the pitch in the league, actually, Adrian, so far as I know. Brings them up to 9 points now. Shane will be delighted with the clean sheet. Watched the game myself. Didn't think they were in much danger throughout the game. Economy of effort, really. Charleville had probably more of the ball. Typical Charleville stuff. Playing the ball nice and short out from the back. But didn't get much change in the last third of the pitch. I thought Adrian Healy marshalled the Janesborough back four really well. Knew when to drop off, knew when to go high. Shane Dillon, who, as we're well aware, is a prolific goal scorer, didn't really get a chance throughout the whole game because the Janesborough defence just dropped off and killed the space in behind. Shane likes to run in behind a lot, and he just didn't get the opportunity. And funnily enough, I watched Charleville also the week before in a cup game against Coona, and Coona kept a very high line against him, and he scored 2 goals and could have scored another 2, but he didn't get any change out of Janesborough over the weekend. And they got to 2 early goals, Janesborough, and looked comfortable throughout, marshalled the game really well, managed it well. Saw a lot of hunger about them as well, Adrian, and that's important in those games that they show. You want to show hunger in every game, but these games with the teams around you in the bottom 6, you need to show a lot of hunger. And they showed a lot of hunger in the first, especially in the first half. Scored their 2 early goals. William Glass got them. First goal was a tremendous goal. Tucked away a header from across from, I think it was Killian O'Shea. The second goal, listen, Adam Castle won't be too enamored with how Charleville defended us. It was really poor defending, and it was a bit of a goal scramble. He tapped it home. But I don't think Charleville deserved much out of the match. They had a couple of half chances, but really didn't trouble Janesborough throughout the game.
Just judging by Adam Castle's, I suppose, recent comments, he hasn't been, obviously overly impressed by the results, maybe from his side. Not so sure about performance levels, but I suppose he'll be very disappointed with that result, then, because as you said, it was a chance as well for Charleville to maybe pull away from Janesborough, Coona and Mungret for to make it at least 6 points, which was huge. But now they're kind of being dragged in, looking over your shoulder a bit, even though I know it's relatively early in the season.
Yeah, and it's like you say, it's a chance to listen. Every point is precious in the league. We've said that before, Adrian. Like he might have been even happy with a draw coming out of there because it keeps the status quo a little bit, but not to get even that. And they had a couple of half chances throughout the match, especially in the second half. Couple of half chances that they might have scored, but there wasn't enough conviction in the team. as I said, a lot of good football up until the last third of the pitch, and then kind of ran out of ideas a bit. They're still down a few players, Adrian, which is hurting them. Obviously, the GA is affecting them a bit. But just on the day, I don't think Adam could have any complaints about the result. Janesborough were deserving winners.
Yeah, Charleville certainly will be praying for the end of the GA season when that is in Cork. I'm not so sure. I believe it is very close as well to finishing as it started before the Limerick Championship. But to move on now, Aidan, as I said, to the top 6 race. I was looking at it, and there's a couple of teams that have played 8 games, Aidan, which means that in some cases for most teams with prospect gone, you've only got 3 games, some have 4. Actually, Crewe Park have 5 games remaining to actually play in the league. But, between Ballinanty on 14 points in 4th position and between, we'll say, Crewe Park, who are 3 places, further back, have 10 points. It's a very tight race. I will say, before I bring you in, that I think with Ballinanty's fixtures, they've got Coona, Charleville, Regional and Janesborough. I do think that there's probably no fear of Ballinanty getting into the top 6, but they are right now in the thick of the race. You also have Nina looking like they've been in the driving seat ahead of Crewe Park, even though they've 2 games more played. But then you look at their fixtures, Aidan, and they've got Ashlinacaddy and Pike left in their 3 fixtures. So it is going to be very tight between those 4 teams. Very,
very tight. And I'm going back to the point again, that every point in that league will be precious, and Nina will be measured now by the next set of fixtures, which certainly on paper look quite difficult. And we spoke about regional even, I think, in our last podcast, that how you'll often be measured when you're playing those teams up near the top, like Ballinanty, Pike, Fairview, Aisling. You need to be trying to pick up a point or 2 off those if at all possible. And there will be a little scrap there for that maybe 6th spot, maybe that 5th spot, Adrian, the way things are shaping up. You would expect, obviously, Aisling, Fairview, Pike and Ballinanty to be the top 4 in whatever order before the split. I think, obviously, Regional, Nina and maybe Crewe Park will be looking to grab a couple of spots after that. You might get someone with a run. It's hard to see Charleville or Borough coming with a run the way things are at the moment. The squad depth isn't there, and even their normal first 11s, they're struggling to get them out. So it'll be interesting to see how that fathoms out over the next few games. But remember, Aidan, every single point, you can't emphasise it enough, will be precious in the scrap to make that top 6. And in fairness to Regional and Nina, they've shown an ambition that they want to be in that top 6. It'll be interesting to see whether Crewe Park can match that ambition.
Yeah, certainly. And just looking at the fixtures, that the likes of Crewe would say Crewe Park have Pike, Fairview, Regional, Charleville and Janesborough. I mean, if you look at, and then you've Pike, Ballinanty, Mungret and Crewe Park for Regional, it could be a case of, it could come down to that game between Regional and Crewe Park to see who gets into that top 6 as well.
Yeah, could, and listen, Crewe Park will be still smarting from their last league defeat to Nina, out Nina 3-1. I think they were leading 1-0 in that. So Nina got a lot of character to come back, and in the end, by all accounts, won quite comfortably, with Crewe having a couple of players sent off. I watched Crewe Park the weekend in the cup game against Ballinanty, Adrian, and they were very, very disappointing. Under pressure for nearly all of the game, struggling to get out of their half. Ballinanty were probably in 3rd or 4th gear really throughout the game, weren't troubled at the back. And if Crewe were taking that sort of form into their last 3 or 4 games before the split, at this stage, going on that, it'll be hard to see them making that top 6, because Nina and Regional are showing quite good form. I was quite critical of them at the start, given the stats we had last year. I think I quoted maybe winning 12 games between the 2 of them. I think they've hit about 11 now, have they, between the 2 of them?
Just to actually interject there, Aidan, I was wondering there, because we all talk about maybe the gap between maybe the top 4 and the rest in the Premier Division. So you have obviously your Ballinanty, Ashlinacaddy, Pike and Fairview that you always expect to be the top 4 now. If Regional, which, on paper right now, if you were to stop the league, it would be Regional, Nina again as the top 6. Does that just show you that maybe, is that a bad indictment, we'll say, on the bottom half of the league, that you'd have the exact same top six again the season after?
Yeah, well, no one has made the step up. Like last year, at one stage, we were hoping Mungers and maybe Prospect might make the step up. Prospect took points off Nina and Regional last year, so you were hoping that might happen. It didn't materialise. And then we had Regional and Nina going into that top six and not doing particularly well while they were up there. So the carrot for them this year is, if they make it, can they take the next step? Can they take points off that top four? That's assuming those two teams make it. I'm quite sure maybe Crew Park will have something to say about that. But that's how you're going to measure them at the end of the day, Adrian. And if they do make that top six, you'll be looking to see, will they make that step up and compare it to what they did last season? Because look, call a spade last season, it was miserable up there. There wasn't a whole lot happening in terms of getting points and making an impression. So it's a big step up when you get there. They're showing signs that maybe they're going to bridge that gap. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, there are some tighter games, particularly involving Nina against the top sides earlier on in the season. So that remains to be seen, I suppose. One of the reasons I was probably asking that question, Aidan, with the top six, is because I do remember having discussions with you, and I'm not so sure we aired them on a podcast as such, in that I believe, and you can obviously correct me if I'm wrong, that you believe that with the problems we've been having at the bottom end, particularly with the likes of Prospect, that maybe decreasing the amount of teams in the Premier Division might be something to be looked at, maybe to like eight teams, 10 teams. Is that correct in me saying that?
Yeah, I did an interview with you a couple of years ago, Adrian, about this. It was just before the top six and the bottom six were being brought in, and you asked me my opinion, and I said that at the time, and I still stick to this opinion, that I don't think it's a good idea. I think it defeats the purpose of a league, and I actually don't think it's working. And what I did suggest at the time maybe was that the Junior Council and the clubs in general look at maybe tightening up the league to 10 teams. And if you're not even happy with that, well, then tighten it up to a Super League of 8 teams. Because obviously there are gaps there. And we need to look at preserving our Premier League and keeping the standard as high as we possibly can. And I would like to see it come down to 10 teams. That's how I'd like to see it. And maybe a 1 up, 1 down, and maybe a playoff initially for maybe the second spot, the team that finishes ninth, and obviously the team that finishes second in Premier A. And long term, I think maybe they should be looking at that and give that a few years and see how it goes. And if necessary, look at going down to 8 teams if it has to do that in order to keep the standard at its highest.
I have brought up that idea to a couple of people, Aidan, and sourcing yourself from it. But I suppose, what would you say to the argument that, people say that maybe that was tried years ago, I'm not so sure, but maybe that because of the lack of commitment maybe, and just the general standard drop, that even dropping teams to 10 or 8 wouldn't really make a whole lot of difference?
Well, I'll agree to disagree in that, as it were, because I feel that at the moment, I don't see any end in sight to where the bottom 6 are going. I mean, we have a situation where clubs are still struggling to get teams out, even in the bottom 6, when they've split. And I don't see an improvement in the standards. I don't see the standard improving whatsoever. And then, as I said, with the top 6, you had a case last season where Regional and Nina hardly won a game when they went up into the top 6. So I feel we need to bring it down to 10. I think it'll be more competitive. And I think the carrot for the teams coming up is to try and improve that standard every single week. And I also think it'll condense the talent pool, that you will have a better talent pool in terms of the top 10. I feel we'll have better players spread out towards the league.
Yeah, we will keep a keen eye on it, and I'm sure that won't be the last time we discuss that throughout the season, that's for sure. To move on to this week, Aidan, there's obviously a plethora of cup fixtures to be played. Firstly, I suppose the Tuohy Cup quarter-final, our first round, tomorrow night will be played between Fairview and Ballinanty Rovers. It's a repeat of last year's final, which Ballinanty came out on top of. They kind of have the Indian sign on Fairview, really, don't they, in recent times, Ed? Because obviously we know they beat them in a couple of weeks ago in the league quite comprehensively. they obviously won that Tuohy Cup final, and then also effectively cost Fairview the league with a draw in LIT towards the back end of last season. So Fairview won't be happy to see Ballinanty again that quick, or maybe they will, to be trying to get revenge. Surely revenge is big on the mind of Fairview now going into tomorrow night.
Yeah, I expect them to play a fairly strong team tomorrow evening. They'll be hurting after defeat outside in LIT a few weeks ago, Adrian. We were both there. Ballinanty, full value for the win. Obviously, the Tuohy Cup final last year. What a great victory for Ballinanty again. And listen, you know, you as I said to you before, you've only so many trophies you can win as a Premier team. You have the league, the FEI, the Munster Junior, the Lawson, the Tuohy. So it's a trophy. And for teams that haven't won a trophy in a long time, when you get to a final, you want to win it once you're there. So I expect Fairview to put out a fairly strong team in it. They have a great record in that Tuohy Cup, Fairview down through the years. When they were in their plum years ago, it was a trophy they won regularly. With Ballinanty, decent squad. You know, they have a lot of young lads in that squad. They might try one or two of them maybe tomorrow evening, but I expect them to go strong as well. It's a game they'll want to win. They're on a good run at the moment. They have that Indian sign over Fairview, so they'll want to put over another one against them tomorrow evening, I'm quite sure.
I know in the interview I did with Dave Dunphy after the Ballinanty match, Aidan, I tried to draw him out on maybe the extra impetus he might have put with the likes of Conor Ellis and Jake Dillon playing on the opposition team, but he definitely was too clever for me on that one. But I suppose looking at it, the one thing I did notice, regardless of Conor Ellis and Jake Dillon being in the opposition team that night and flying out for Fairview, you know, I suppose it wasn't a good indictment, but it just seemed like Ballinanty wanted the game more in general, you know, in the 50-50s, and I'm sure Paul Danaher will make sure that's not the case again tomorrow night. Yeah,
Ballinanty showed a lot of hunger that evening to win the match. You could see that in even the set piece deliveries, the finish from the set pieces, the will to get on the end of the football and put it into the back of the net. And the other thing was they didn't give any space in their half of the pitch to Fairview to try and play. I didn't see Conor Ellis getting in behind him once. Darragh Rainsford had some good moments, but you know, really defended well. Led by Aidan Hurley at the back. Two fulls were very, very solid. Stephen McNamara in goal didn't have a whole lot to do, dealt with it quite well. So I think Fairview will be highly motivated to try and get a result tomorrow evening. And listen, you win a couple of these cup games in the Tuohy Cup and you're into a final, Adrian. You know, a couple of games and you're there. And it's a final to be won. And it's normally the first final to be played. Yeah. So you have a trophy on your belt if you can manage to get there and win it. And it gives you a nice base to get into the rest of the season, to have that trophy under your belt.
Yeah, I was just saying, because it's the curtain raiser, it certainly is nice to win it as curtain raiser in terms of trophies. So give a lot of teams confidence. There's a lot of Munster Junior Cup fixtures, Aidan, being played this week. You're going into your second round and third round fixtures now, but what I noticed is there's no real standout, obviously, Premier versus Premier tie in it. But what I did notice which is different to a lot of times I look at this round of the Cup, there's a lot of maybe Premier A sides who have a good bit of confidence taking on Premier sides who are either around the middle. So, you know, you look at Carbery United will host Crewe Park. Obviously, they'll be familiar with each other from last year in the Premier A League. Regional, a club you know very well at Lunkard are at home to Regional United, and they've Bannacarry against Hyde. Hyde are in good form, in fairness to them. You know, they're right up towards the top of Premier A after getting promoted. So, and not to mention that Newport, who are flying high, will play Janesborough. So there are a lot of sticky ties for the Premier Division teams now this week.
Absolutely, Adrian, and sure, with my romancing of the Cup effort a few weeks ago on our podcast, I'm obviously hoping there's going to be a shock person so I can come on again and talk about it. Certainly, if you've banana skins there, I believe Carbery at home, Art Lunkard at home, so there is a chance. But look, you have to be lucky on the day. It's cup football. I said before, anybody can beat you in a cup match. So if you're the Premier team there, you have to be very professional about what you're doing, about how you approach it. Your mindset has to be correct. You have to get on top of the game early. Try and get ahead if you can. Give that team that from the division below you nothing to fight for. On the other hand, then the team that's maybe not expected to win from a lower division, you have to be at it again from the start. You have to try and find that little bit of weakness in the opposition. You have to be nice and steady at the back. Make sure you don't give any space away. attack the game as best you can, wait for your chance and grab it, and then try and hold on to it and manage the game. But it's cup football, anything can happen. Certainly a lot of tasty toys there. Who knows? Hopefully, there might be a shock.
Absolutely, and I know that I won't be thanked for mentioning them, but obviously at the end there I mentioned Newport, who played Janesborough in Pearse Stadium. Kind of under the radar so far, which Davy Ryan said to me he would have preferred them to stay, but I'm bringing them up now on the podcast. They're top of the Premier A League, joint top with Geraldines, 6 wins from 7, if I'm correct, and that's including Granville, who are gone now as well. But free scoring goals for Newport as well, and just beat Geraldines in the Munster Junior Cup. So, you know, and with the club setup out there, Aidan, as well, you'd imagine that the ambition would be to finally bridge the gap and challenge for promotion to the Premier.
Yeah, they have a fantastic setup, and it's building all the time. And I believe there's more development going to be happening there in the next 12 months. Some major developments happening there in the next 12 months. Really, really very good club. I think it's 3 junior teams now, and the youth team, 17s. Great schoolboy setup. There's a lot of great work going on outside. The first team have kind of been nearly men, really, Adrian, the last few years. And they're probably looking at it, maybe, you know, that consistency level isn't there with them at the moment. Some really good players there. You know, Jake Dillon really came out of there, didn't he? And they still have quite a few young lads there ready to make the step up as well. But you'd like to think they're going to make the step up with their own club rather than joining clubs already in the Premier in the years to come. But you got to get that level of consistency there in order to get up, and they haven't had that. In terms of the match Sunday, yeah, it's another banana skin for Janesborough. I will say about Janesborough, in fairness, I was talking to Shane the weekend. They had a banana skin 2 weeks ago as well against Cardavan and kept through it. And I thought they were very professional about how they did that. Looking at them again Sunday, really professional how they saw the game against Charleville, and they'll need to be at that level again on Sunday, and not take their thumb off the pulse, and make sure they get through the game, because Newport will be up for that. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I was speaking to Noel O'Connor during the week, Aidan, about Dara Costello's inclusion in the Irish under-21 squad. But to bring it to our amateur status now, you've 2 players who are actually currently in a few minutes kicking off against Northern Ireland. AJ O'Connor from Fairview Rangers, and Chris Smith, who obviously newly joined Ashley Anacotty from St. Michael's. So 2 Limerick District League representatives in that squad. And I suppose just a word really on both players as well, because there's been a huge consistency from both players, because, you know, to be picked on such a regular basis over the last couple of seasons and beyond, in cases of even like Brendan O'Connell there of Rockman, it's an unbelievable achievement, isn't it, to be fair?
It is, yeah. Listen, the manager there, Jerry Davis, is a huge pick. So it's great to see the couple of local players in it. There's no doubt AJ deserves to be there. Fairview have had a fantastic run in the Cups, showing a lot of consistency. He's an all-rounder, and look, when you're a manager at that level, you often look for all-rounders. AJ can play right full, he can play centre half, he can anchor midfield, he could actually play above that midfield, because he'd be decent man at third man running, very good in the air, decent passer of the ball, physically very strong and super fit, and has a great attitude. And that's what they look for. Chris Smith has been very consistent with St. Michael's, obviously, over the last few years, and now having joined Ashling is performing consistently well for them. And you know, Davis will be monitoring those players all the time, so he'll know exactly what's going on. And it's great to see Limerick being represented at this level, and hopefully they'll get a decent result tonight.
Certainly, Aidan. And just to finish on a good feel note that actually isn't junior related, it's senior soccer. Obviously, we were talking about cup shocks earlier on, and you were saying you were a romanticist in that respect. So you would have been delighted to see Treaty United defeat UCD, I'd imagine, last week. I mean, they took full advantage of the draw up until now, didn't beat a Premier Division opposition at home. We know that they got Derry City away, which is a daunting task, but, you know, they'd rather be there than not be there. It was brilliant for their side.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Listen, I watched the game on LOI TV, and I thought they were fantastic. Never looked in danger, moved the ball well, in the corner. What a fantastic signing he has been. He's just so prolific in the box, and You have little Willie Armshaw, who can play on either wing for you. You know, it reminds me of a guy years ago when I was very young watching TV. A guy called Willie Johnston used to play with Celtic, had just magic feet, and he was actually superb the other night. And listen, it's great to get there, and it profiles the club for them. I know it's away, but they're going to be playing in front of a massive crowd. There'll be huge motivation there to cause a cup shock. And who's to say they mightn't do it? Obviously, Derry are in great form at the moment, and they have the home tie. But they can go up there and enjoy it. Try and stay in the game, see can they nick something. You got to be a romantic, Adrian, and hopefully they'll cause a shock.
Well, we do have fond memories of the Brandywell from 2002 with Noel O'Connor's late Limerick winning the League Cup up there when no one thought they would, and that was even harder at the time when they were bottom of the league. So hopefully Treaty with good form going into it will cause an upset on the day. My thanks to Aidan Ryan once again for his input this week and his analysis, and we'll hope to be joining you again next week on what is going to be another busy week for Limerick Junior Soccer.